Thank you, Kochko, for your service and your campaign. We wish you the best for sure. Congressional race is tough. All right, we're going to open it up now for some questions and answers from the panel. Raise your hand if you have a question. We will, you're going to work this side? Yeah, we got two mics. So let's start with the gentleman right there. Barry, if you can get the gentleman right there. And if you could address it to the panelist, then we'll bounce it around if need be. Short answers from the panelists so we can cover a lot of ground. Yeah, let the gentleman hold, let Barry, you hold the mic and you can ask the question, sir. Mic's not on. You get that sorted out, let's hold it.
My question is, what is the scenario for Iran if the treaty is rejected? Will it help those in Iran that oppose the current regime? Thank you.
All right, Claire, why don't you take that? You understood the question. What's the scenario for Iran if it's rejected? There's an interesting theory, very quickly, Claire will tell you about, where the Ayatollah may reject it, and then we'll get Amir to weigh in on that too.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I don't think this is working.
He's bringing it up over there.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. The deal is being negotiated by the regime, at the top levels of the regime and its supporters. The beneficiaries of any deal, as you heard others of the speakers and myself talk about the sanctions relief plus the unfrozen funds that together might amount to something like $150 billion plus. The benefits of that would accrue to those who've got the power in that economy, in that regime. And as you heard, I think Dan mentioned this, that something like 1/3 of the entire Iranian economy is outright owned by the IRGC or individual commanders of it. So that relief, the sanctions relief, unfrozen funds that would come with the deal would benefit the regime primarily. The people of Iran are not the ones who are going to benefit from these funds. They might get some of it. They might get some small percentage of it just to keep them down, keep them pacified. But they're not the ones who are going to be the beneficiaries. We also heard the regime leadership talk about some of these funds would be going to terror support around the region. And indeed, we saw Javad Zarif, the foreign minister, just in the last couple of weeks, travel to Beirut, Lebanon, where they made sure they had a very prominent photo op of the two of them sitting with the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah. So that's who's going to benefit from this deal.
Hello, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Regarding what will happen, I guess the biggest gift to the Iranian regime, as I said in my interview with Tom before, is legitimacy. The Iranian regime, the mullahs, Khamenei's regime, they needed badly this legitimacy. They were isolated for years, and nobody in the world wanted to deal with them, to do business with them on stage, and everything. If they had some type of business, it was behind the scene. But this deal will make them legitimate and will put them on stage of the international community as the rational regime. That, yeah, it's okay, everybody can come and deal with you and talk with you. You can see after, it's not any deal there now. It's just some conversation. They are going to have it. But immediately after they announced that it will be a deal, we had the long list of groups from the business men and businesswomen from Europe, from Germany, from UK, from France. They went to Iran and they started dealing with Iran already. They started spending money there, and that means more money for this super dangerous regime. That means more money. It's a shame, because if you go right now to state.gov, the State Department's official website, if you check the state sponsor of terror, you will see 3 names there. Number 1 is Iran, since January 19, 1984, Iran's name is there on the top of the list. It's a shame for the administration to just give this regime, who the administration itself accepted it's the most famous state sponsor of terrorism, give them money, 150 billion and a lot more than later, and just let them have opportunity to go and destroy the world and support all the terrorist groups. To me, I guess the worst part is that to give them legitimacy, and then it's disaster for Iranian freedom movement, because regime will have more money. The Revolutionary Guard and the Basijis, they will have more support, more salary to go after the freedom fighters, send them to jail, kill them, and the world should get ready to deal with the atomic Iran.
As we go to the next question, remember, we're going to end here around 3:30, 3:35. Book sales in the back with Captain Dan Gordon. We'll be here till about 4 o'clock. Then 5:30, the rally starts. You'll hear more from all of us, and a little different message. It'll be more a rally message to mobilize people. Mark, what do you have over there?
George has a question here.
George Bernard from Buellton. I have a question for Dan Gordon. If the Israeli government decides that it has to make a preemptive strike on Iran, and we're not sure whether Obama's people will support him or not, what is that strike likely to look like, and what might the blowback be?
It will not be quick, it will not be surgical, it will not be like the Osiris reactor strike against Iraq or against the strike against the Syrian reactor. It would probably take almost everything that Israel has. It would be a sustained effort, probably lasting 3 weeks plus. It would unleash undoubtedly 100,000 rockets from Hezbollah fired at Israel. Even if we intercept 90% of them, 10,000 rockets would get through. It would more than likely unleash what Hamas has left. It would also unleash Iran's own ballistic missile systems against Israel. It would be the bloodiest, most god-awful war that Israel has ever faced, and it would be preferable to the alternative.
I don't know if they heard you over here, that last sentence, Dan. Could you repeat that last sentence, please?
I said it would be the bloodiest, most god-awful war that Israel has ever faced, and it would be preferable to the alternative.
There was a news report this morning that 2 Americans were convicted in Iran and received 10-year sentences. This strikes me as being merely a ploy, as a bargaining chip for Iran to say, we'll not only cough up the 2 we just sentenced for 10 years, but the other 2 Americans that are also being held there. It's a bargaining chip so that they can convince our wonderful senators to approve of the deal if they throw in the 4 prisoners to get them out of Iran. What is the take of the panel on that?
Ryan, you want to take that?
Sure. Well, we have to remember that it's not always just about the nuclear program. Does that add pressure? I'm not so sure. If anything, it could hurt the cause of trying to get the deal passed, because it puts this issue back in the news, the fact that they are holding Americans hostage. But what it could be related to is terrorist negotiation, which is now our policy. It wasn't for a long time, but we now negotiate with terrorists and we do exchanges. And so what the Iranian regime can quite reasonably think is, let's bring attention to these Americans that are being held in order to ratchet up the pressure on the administration to then release our terrorist proxies that they are holding. And that's happened previously.
Claire?
Just a real brief clarification on that. From what I saw from the reports this morning, it is that 2 people have been sentenced in Iran. We don't know if one of them is an American or not. It is possible that Jason Rezaian has a result from his recent trial, but we don't know that.
Okay, let's go over to Mark.
This question relates to motivation. Given the fact that the United States was negotiating from a position of extreme strength while Iran was negotiating from a position of extreme weakness, what would motivate the Obama administration to basically give away everything? A second question is similarly with the Senate having the overview capability in terms of treaties, what would motivate Senator Corker, Senator McCain, and others to essentially give away the Senate's ability to overview this deal?
These are very, very, very important and substantive questions. Obviously, in this forum, we don't have the time to properly answer that, but a quick overview answer. Who would like to take that? Claire, go ahead.
I think that this administration, the Obama administration, came into office with a particular worldview that said that America is a force for ill in the world rather than for good, and with a resolve and an agenda to withdraw American power and influence from the world, but in particular from the Muslim world, and we heard that expressed in the June 2009 Cairo speech that the president gave in Cairo, Egypt. So I think that the way this played out in terms of policy is that the administration got behind Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood in North Africa and supported their uprisings in 2010 and 11. And that our administration believed that the alternative to those regimes in Tunisia, in Libya, and in Egypt, who are our longtime allies in the fight against Al-Qaeda, that the alternative that the Muslim Brotherhood would accede to power was their preferred agenda. In the Persian Gulf region, though, I think the idea was that the Iranians would be allowed to rise to unipolar hegemonic power with nuclear weapons when they were ready. I think that is policy. I think it's been policy since 2009. And the purpose of it is that this administration, this president, I think, believe that it is better that Islam be allowed to rise back to its position of strength and power in the world, that we withdraw because we are a force for ill. We are a power that has been aggressive and arrogant. You've heard the president use these words. And that because the balance of power in the Middle East is broken, when we took out Saddam Hussein but left the mullahs in power, we busted the balance of power there. And in order to fix that, rather than allow another Sunni power to rise up, which it's done in any case anyway in the organization of the Islamic State, that Iran would be therefore empowered to be the overwhelming hegemonic power. I think that is policy, and I think it is policy that they be allowed to have nuclear weapons, because that neutralizes the far more numerous Sunni population, and, in my opinion, the idea is that it also checkmates Israel.
You're gonna hear several new words in your lexicon. Hegemony or hegemon is a very interesting word, Greek word. It simply means to control. So Claire's explaining that Iran's view is to control certain areas of the Middle East by proxies or a variety of different ways. As you know, there's about 1.3 billion Muslims in the world. 85, 90% are Sunni, many of whom are Arabs. You don't have to be an Arab to be a Muslim, obviously. Muslims, their religion. The Shia are 10, 15%. Iran is virtually 90% Shia. They hate each other and kill each other. They take off a little time to kill Jews and Americans if the opportunity arises. But a hegemon or a hegemonic situation, just think this way. You're putting a hedge around your enemy, hegemony, putting a hedge around your enemy for control. This is what's happening in the Middle East. And remember, Valerie Jarrett, chief advisor of the president, was born in Iran, has a tremendous amount of influence. Hillary Clinton's chief national security confidant is Abedin, who's on the Muslim Brotherhood side. She was born in Kuwait. She was a member of the Muslim Student Association at Georgetown. Her family's heavily involved in Saudi Muslim Brotherhood. So we have interesting dynamics. On January 20th, 2009, I was walking in The Hague, in Holland, and a couple days later in Paris. And the streets were paved with President Obama's pictures all throughout Europe. It was Inauguration Day in America, and Europe was welcoming the new Messiah, January 20th, 2009. I couldn't believe my eyes. We see where the world has come in these few short years. Barry, you got somebody back there?
Hi, Matt Coconut from San Luis Obispo, California. Is this agreement a treaty? I believe it's a treaty, and if it's a treaty, it requires the Senate's approval by 2/3 majority. And I believe that at this point, what the congressional leaders have done has been to undermine our Constitution, throw it outside totally. Now we need a 2/3 majority to overrun Obama's veto of this thing. And I'm very concerned about it. That's my position on the unconstitutionality of this whole thing.
It's very confusing, and unless you've been studying this material to figure out if this is a treaty, not a treaty, what's the Congress's role, Dan, you want to weigh in on that a little bit, or Ryan? Ryan's chomping. Amir's jumping around. Amir, 1 minute, Amir. You can. My Persian brother. Go ahead.
Definitely, it should be a treaty.
Yes.
With all the meaning it's around it, but just one single senator got it right. It was called Senator Tom Cotton.
Yep.
He realized that a couple of months ago they had a vote, and the Obama administration drafted a paper, sent it to the Senate, said, okay, if you want to vote for something, vote for this, and they changed that single vote. They just put it out, the treaty vote part. And then nobody got it. Both sides, they voted for it. It was 99 senators, they voted for it, and just Senator Tom Cotton yelled, said, no, it is a treaty. You should look at it as a treaty. And then Obama administration said, oh, we got it, done. And right now, it's not a treaty on a paper, but it should be definitely a treaty to have 2/3 of the...
And Senator Tom Cotton is the only senator who spent 4 tours in Iraq as a combat soldier. So he understands this very, very well. The timeline is critically important. September 17th, the United States Congress has to weigh in. Because of what Amir just explained and because of your recognition, sir, this is not a treaty. It should have been. It isn't. And it's reversed. Instead of the Congress having the authority to approve something, the Congress was snookered, outmaneuvered by President Obama to weigh in to disapprove. The vote, which has to happen before the 17th, most likely will be the 15th, is a vote of disapproval. We don't like this agreement, President Obama. He's going to go, ha, 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 and veto it. He's got about 10 days to do that. So now we're at the end of September, and he will veto this, most likely. He will veto this. Then the United States Congress has to override the veto, not with 50% plus 1, but with 2/3 majority. The votes aren't there right now. There's so much arm twisting going on around the United States that when they reconvene it in a couple of weeks, you're going to see casts on everybody's arms from being twisted so much by both sides of the aisle. Again, we're arguing and we're playing the long game. Win, lose, or draw in the next 45 days, we're preparing an army of people, of citizens, to stand with America, Israel, and the West when all things get crazy out there. Next question, Mark.
If the counterforce or retaliatory strike that the captain referred to earlier were to take place, is there still a viable third force in Iran? And under those circumstances, would it be able to take down the rest of the regime? You understand what I mean by the third force, right? The third force are the young people, the very ones that started a revolt at the beginning of the Obama administration that he didn't support, and that Condi Rice and the rest of those people wrote articles in Foreign Affairs, even in the first election for George Bush.
Are you referring to what's called the Green Revolution in 2009? Okay. Amir, take that, yeah.
If I understood the question well, if we want to know if the Green movement is still alive in Iran, am I right? That was the question?
Green Revolution, third force.
Okay, yeah, it's called the Green Movement, and the new generation in Iran, they designed this. It was started probably a decade ago during the student uprising, and then the world could see it in 2009 as the Green Movement or Green Revolution. It's still alive. With Ryan, we have been talking about it exactly before this panel, and then it's still alive, but it needs some support. In 2009, Obama destroyed that movement with his comment that he said, I don't want to go and just be involved in this inside the fight in Iran. And at the same time, when he said he don't want to support the people in the street, at the same day, his administration, they send invitation to all Iranian embassies all around the world to invite them for 4th of July party at US embassies. Really? He supported the regime. At the same day, they killed Neda, and they killed the hundreds of Iranian new generation activists who love United States and who love Israel. And then Obama said, I don't want to be involved in it. It is still alive, and it needs support, specifically from United States. And if I may, I just say one more thing about, let's look at the history. Let's go back to 1986. It was the same situation with South Africa, if you remember. When President Reagan, I love President Reagan, I admire him, and he was the best president ever, but he was wrong in that case. He started negotiating with South African apartheid regime, which was wrong, but he thought probably he can bring that regime to the right way. But at the end, the Congress was disagree. Right now, the Democrats, the senators and congressmen, they should not be ashamed to look at that side. At that time, Senator Lugar, who was Republican, he started a movement against a Republican president, President Reagan. And Senator Lugar said, okay, we need sanction as hard as possible on South African regime. Then President Reagan said, I will veto it, and he vetoed that. And then Senator Lugar said, okay, we are going for veto-proof vote. And then the Republicans, they led the campaign to go for the veto-proof vote. Just check it, October 1986. And one of those freshman senators at that time who voted against the president, and he was really sad because of that vote, was Senator McConnell. And he said, I'm really sad, I love President Reagan, but this is about the national security of United States, and this is about the humanity, and he voted against his party. Right now, we need the Democrats, the senators, and the congressmen to just cross the party line and think about the future of United States and the immediate future of Israel.
Amen.
And go against this president.
All right. And Chuck Schumer in New York did just that. Maybe one or two more questions, and then we're going to give everybody 1 minute. Let me tell you about this. Well, I'll tell you about in a second, but let's, the young lady there. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh. Hi, I've been working as a prosecutor locally for about 21 years, MS-13 gang crimes, and I'd like some information from Ms. Lopez about how the connection between Hezbollah, Iran, and the Central and South American and Mexican gang crimes are going to affect us and are affecting us today.
Yeah, thank you for that question. The influx of Hezbollah operatives into the Western Hemisphere began during the Lebanese Civil War. Although Lebanese immigration began at that point, the Hezbollah joined that flow in the 1980s, and they began to get a foothold, first of all, in South America, in the place they call the tri-border area, where Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay come together. That was their first foothold. The Iranians did their part by establishing bases of operation using cover positions inside of their embassies, consulates, and also Islamic centers and mosques throughout South America. From there, they began to move northward. In particular, once Hugo Chavez came to power in Venezuela in the late 2000s, and Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was president of Iran in 2005 until 2013, there came a very close relationship there, and Venezuela to this day is the base of operations in the Western Hemisphere for Iran and for Hezbollah. From there, they moved up through Central America, where they allied themselves with the Maras, that's the gangs, and then on up into Mexico, where Hezbollah has established very close working relationships with the narcotics trafficking cartels such as Sinaloa and Los Zetas. And they have Hezbollah have piggybacked off of the routes of the trafficking cartels up into the United States. It's an opportunistic relationship. It is not a unification of ideology, obviously, but it's pure business. And the Hezbollah operatives can trade things like explosives expertise, tunneling expertise, weapons access to the cartels, which then allow Hezbollah to use their trafficking routes from Mexico. The Plaza Boss is controlling that flow on up into the United States, so it's a trade-off. They have been working very closely together for many years now. Hezbollah has operational cells throughout the United States. We know this from different legal cases that have actually come to court. They are using all kinds of operations to include many different kinds of criminal operations, not just narco-trafficking, but banking fraud, credit card fraud, trafficking in cigarettes, and many other kinds of criminal activity, auto theft rings, and so forth, to raise money, to fund themselves and their own operations, and also to send back over to Lebanon, to the mothership, if you will. And so this integrated network that is directed ultimately by Iran through the IRGC, which has the Quds Force division as part of it. The Quds Force are the commanders of Hezbollah. They operate out of Iranian embassies, consulates, and Islamic centers. They direct the Hezbollah cells in this hemisphere, and they are very active. They await orders. They take orders. They don't go rogue. They will take orders from the Supreme Leader, and when the Supreme Leader tells those Hezbollah cells to go, they will go. And that trigger could be an event like an Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear weapons facilities. I don't expect a U.S. one, but in my dreams that could be another potential trigger. But they will act when the Supreme Leader tells them to act, but they are here, they are now, they are established all over the United States.
Yeah, Dan, you have to add to this.
If I can add something to that. For those people who say, oh, that's a really silly scenario, Hezbollah is never going to attack the United States, it's important for people to understand that for terrorism, the Middle East is an R&D facility for what they intend to do to the United States. When terrorism began hijacking airplanes in the early 70s, the world regarded that as a Jewish problem. That was an Israeli problem. Well, they hijacked one Israeli El Al airliner, and they didn't succeed in hijacking another one since then. But they certainly went on to hijack almost every other Western airline there is. Hezbollah sees a wonderful opportunity in the northern Mexican region. And if you say, well, they wouldn't dare attack the United States, or the United States would do what? Because they would be embedded, just as they are in Lebanon, with Mexican innocent civilians. There's no government of the United States that would authorize airstrikes against northern Mexico. There's no government of the United States that would authorize a ground incursion into northern Mexico. And if this deal goes through, they'll be operating under a nuclear umbrella, so that if the United States says to Iran, you better stop them from doing it, or Iran will say, really? Or what? We have 200 nuclear weapons. That's the danger that we face.
Let's remember, from my
Claire, we gotta wrap it up.
Yeah,
So
no, very quickly, Iran and Hezbollah already have hit the United States. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Iran and Hezbollah were involved with Al-Qaeda in the attacks of 9/11. They were never, ever held accountable. They can act with impunity. They think because the United States, we've been hit in the homeland, 3,000 people murdered, and we never did a thing about it. They think they have total impunity.
Not only that, they plan to assassinate the Saudi ambassador in Washington, D.C., and blow up the Israeli embassy. Everyone knows about it. Nothing happened to them, and so they don't fear us. Strength is never provocative. Weakness is always provocative.
you got these guys going now up here with these answers, but we got a whole nother part of our day of action. And everybody up here is a subject matter expert. Be sure to get Dan's book. We're going to have a short closing statement. Don't go anywhere yet. We've got about 4 more minutes or so. And then you can go back to the books, all of that. But everybody up here waived their honoraria to come here when Sheridan asked them to do that. So give these guys a round of applause for that. Notwithstanding that there was a significant savings there. Like I said at the outset, we're still about 7 G's, New Jersey talk, 7 G's short of covering this thing. If anyone can help with that, the organizers would appreciate it. Tax deductible donation, we can help you out with that. Folks, take 30 seconds. And even in Persia, 30 seconds is 30 seconds, Amir, okay? 30 seconds. Let's start here, ending with Andy. And then we have one final thing after that. Go ahead.
Again, I'm going to hobble my way back to the table over there. I encourage you to buy the book, Day of the Dead, Book 1, Gaza, because it outlines what I think is a frightening scenario and a very real scenario based on a dress rehearsal that happened. It's not theoretical. It happened a year ago in a war that I participated in. It's a great Tom Clancy espionage read, but it's a wake-up call. Get one for yourself and for your congressperson, and I'll be happy to autograph it.
Was that picked up by any type of news on that book or anything like that, as far as anything happening?
It's going to be a movie, yes. This
yes,
is
it's going to be a major motion picture from the same studio that produced Act of Valor. Thanks. You're better at this than I am.
Claire.
Please think about what we've told you today. I know it's been an awful lot to throw at you, and a lot of it is very upsetting, I'm sure. Please think about it, though. Go back. You will be able to see the video. Look at it again. Think about what we've told you. This deal paves the way with international legitimization for Iran's overt nuclear weapons program while doing absolutely nothing to even acknowledge that its covert clandestine program even exists. We've got to talk to our representatives. We've got to let them know that we oppose this deal. It is a staggeringly disastrous deal. Please get to your representatives. Let them know how you feel about this. Urge them when they come back to Congress in middle of September to please vote this deal down. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, let's look who won in this deal if it happened. First, Vladimir Putin, the head of Russia, who is thinking to just bring up again the Soviet Union under his administration. And then the second winner was the Supreme Leader. And then I want to just shift this topic to my new book, which is called Comrade Ayatollah. The Farsi version of the book is out. It will be in the market at the end of September. And I'm working on the English version, probably the end of fall. It will be out too. And you will find in that book a lot of information about the Soviet Union's intelligence service, KGB's role, to train the Iranian mullahs, specifically the Iranian current Supreme Leader Khamenei, how they trained them in Russia, in Patrice Lumumba University, KGB's school, in 1960 to 1964. And I found all the documents and evidences, more than 400 exclusive documents and evidences about that how the Russians, they designed that revolution in Iran in 1979, which everybody, they thought it's Islamic revolution, but it was not. It was designed directly by them. And then after the revolution, what happened and how they brought to the power Supreme Leader. If you look at the story that way, you will see this deal is a lot more dangerous than the thing you think. It's the deal with the new face of Soviet Union and the start of new Cold War, which it will be a lot more dangerous than you think for the United States. Please, I want to just ask again, Claire asked, call every single representative, senators and congressmen, Democrat and Republican. Call them, send them letter, ask them to vote down this deal. Thank you.
Firstly, please sign up for our newsletter at clarionproject.org so that you can continue to get our information. You can interact with me and the other folks that are part of the Clarion Project. But I also want to impress the point that, yes, fight against the deal, but if we lose that fight and this deal goes through, your job isn't done yet. There's a lot of stuff that we can do to help the cause of Iranians like Amir and hurt the Iranian regime. There are state-level, essentially, sanctions that can be implemented. There are states that have not yet divested from Iran that we can work on, and there are those that have already implemented them that can tighten up those measures, because there's various forms of them, and you can look them up online. On the individual level, you can invest in terror-free mutual funds, so that you can punish the companies that want to get blood money off of working with the Iranian regime. So that you say, well, I'm not going to invest in you, and you're not going to use my money to do it. And if millions of Americans do that, and if on the state level all these measures are done across the board, what happens is that sanctions relief that Iran gets becomes minimized. Because think of how much money that they have lost. Because in international business, if they have to choose between the U.S. economy and the Iranian economy, they're going to choose the American economy. And that is a scenario that, regardless of what the president does, that's something that we can all create across the country. So think about that.
Andy, you want to close it out? 1 minute, please.
You have a chance right now to start right now. In this next 2 hours, call everybody you can. Tell them they need to get to the sunken garden to hear what you just heard. If you don't put your faith into action, it's dead. If this information doesn't go past you, we have accomplished virtually nothing. You have got to multiply yourselves. You've got to become an echo of what you've heard. In the next 2 hours, start calling people. And in fact, since we're in Santa Barbara, call a peacenik. Think about it. We're the home of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. Where are they in regards to Iran getting the bomb? Does somebody here have Krieger's phone number? Call him. Start calling people right now. Get them there at 5:30. Start calling other people and have them do what you've been asked to do. Call representatives, not just Lois, but as many as you can think of throughout the United States. Thank you.
All right, now we have something special for you. We've taken a very academic approach to the issue, but as you've heard here several times, as you've heard, there's a very real possibility that there will be some bombing somewhere, somehow, some way. So we put together for you a 2-minute little short video, provocative, satirical piece to make people think about the importance of resolving this without bombing. Take a look at this, then we're going to ask Sheridan to come up, and then we'll close it out there. Here you go. Check this out. Yep. We're going to have to restart it, I think, Mark. All right, while they're sorting that out, it's a fascinating little piece that we put together. March 12th, 2016, I'll be leading a tour with some others to Israel. Special focus Iran and Iran's impact through its proxies. These are national security tours, not necessarily religious tours, anything like that. So see me if you're interested, and if we can get this going, can we? You'll appreciate this. It's a 2-minute little piece. We have the audio going? All All right, let's try it. If not, then we'll email it to you. No? Okay. No, I can't do it right now. It was entitled roll music of bomb, 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 Iran. And, but it was all put together with factual information regarding the real situation that's going on right now. We'll forget about it for now. But Sheridan, can you come up here for a moment, please? As we said,
Here you go. There you go.
driving the board man crazy.
I'll keep this very brief.
One. Okay.
Test.
I just want to thank all of you for coming. I'm a normal person. I'm a mom. I have a small business. I've lived in Santa Barbara since 1983 when I was 17 years old. I love my community. I love my country. I love my family. And, I'm a very, very private person. So I just hope that I can set an example for you, that if me, a normal Santa Barbara private person, can put myself out there and be able to bring this incredible group of people here to share with you my deep and profound concern for our future. Please join us at the Sunken Gardens. We need to let our elected officials know that we have a voice. If you don't speak up, you won't be heard. Anyway, thank you all for coming.
Stay right here.
Check.
All right, Sheridan, hang on 1 second. The guys, we have our United West team here, a few of them. The guys wanted to give you something a little special. Barry, can you come up and give that to Sheridan, please? There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's a picture. Thank you very much. We'll be here for about a half hour, then over to the Sunken Gardens. Thank you very much.
Pro-U.S. young Iranian people are just like fucking blowing up.